All right, great. So welcome, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on how to unblock your DevSecOps transformation. My name is Charles Maddox with the I4 group. I have my colleague, Emilio Osorio from Sistemas Humanos, and we're hoping to give you some good insights and some key principles around unblocking your DevSecOps transformation. All right, without further ado, we're going to jump right into it. Just for the sake of time. Next slide, please. A little bit of background on us. My name is Charles Maddox again, the founder and principal at the I4 group. We've been in the digital transformation space for the last 10 years. We're based out of Dallas, Texas. Some of our specialties and things of focus are in lean agile training, DevSecOps, and also cybersecurity product resale. Emilio, you want to give a quick background on yourself and Sistemas Humanos?
Great, thank you, Charles. Well, my name is Emilio. I'm the founder and leader at Sistemas Humanos. I'm the principal consultant. We have been doing technological transformations for the last 15 years. It's been an awesome ride, really. And currently we are helping companies of all sizes, but mostly enterprise customers to do their technological modernization and transformation and baselining that as a DevOps transformation. So I'm very happy to be with you, and I hope you find the information in this webinar useful.
Thanks, Emilio. So what is a DevSecOps transformation? So as we know, if anybody has been doing large scale enterprise level software development for at least the last 10 to 20 years, you've probably heard of the waterfall process, where different stages of the software development lifecycle are very clear and explicit, and a gated process might even be in place. But assuming one step leads to another, and it's a very point-based approach, very straightforward approach to delivering on a requirement for your customer. And there's challenges with that approach, right? So kind of showing you why some of the challenges that the DevOps approach solves. And you can give me a click here, Emilio, that the DevOps approach is where we look at this as a cyclical cycle, where there's feedback loops to previous stages. And we kind of, the reality of it is that customers are always giving us feedback. We understand our development teams as a business owner or as a product manager is giving us feedback, and it's a very cyclical approach. And we've known this DevOps approach, what kind of supports the DevOps mindset, this cyclical way of working with our customers and throughout our organizations, is an agile approach. So agile and DevOps in a way are very synonymous. I say kind of agile as a subset of some of the components of how we implement during the DevOps stages of the process, but very much supportive of one another, DevOps and Agile. We even say that you can't really implement a true DevOps approach without having good Agile practices in place. So what about the Sec? This is about DevSecOps. So security, and as we know it, security is another non-functional requirement that needs to be a part of the solutions that we're building on a large scale in today's world, especially. And we really emphasize security these days more than ever because of the hackers that are out there, the systems that are being broken into, and social security numbers and passport information, being thrown out there on the internet, and people doing a lot of bad stuff with that. So we like to make sure that we're emphasizing security in our development approach, and that's where the DevSecOps comes into play. And like any of the non-functional requirements, whether it be, even call it some levels of, performance testing or some type of compliance testing, well, how we want to support and kind of call that an operational areas or non-functional requirements, if you will, but we want to have these type of items planned into how we build our products from the beginning. So as a part of our planning, as a part of our analysis, it's part of our build process, it's part of our, our review, our code scanning process, all of our validation, and even how we, analyze maybe through telemetry and how our customers are using our products. So security is just embedded into how we do things. And we want to make sure that, especially in today's world, again, with the nature of the internet seeming like the wild, wild west, that we want to have secure products being put out and deployed into the customer market. All right. Emilio, you want to add anything to that? Well, I'll jump on this. Go ahead.
Well, really, one of the things we are seeing in the market, in the real life, is that most of the DevSecOps transformation are not really meeting the expectations from business. There's been a lot of information and things that the market of DevOps is trying to push the organizations to do, mostly basic on toolings. They're like having this idea that having a tool will actually speed their development, and there are a lot of promises that are not being kept on doing that actual transformation. That's essentially the main focus of this webinar. Why are these transformations not meeting expectations? And this problem is really huge. 75% of DevOps transformations are not going to meet the expectations next year, and we are more on the same side right now. So what's the reality of these DevOps transformations? Well, most of the things we have seen is that most people start with a team emphasis, a team level emphasis. And the problem with the team level emphasis is that if you're a small company, that's perfectly fine. Probably your team builds and run the system. But if you are in a large enterprise, your team will never in a traditional organization be able to build and to run the software. So we need other teams, and when we need other teams, then the things begin to break. We work in silos, we have management issues, we have political wars, and essentially we don't have time to do the technological transformation deep enough to realize the problems. And then there's the talent problems. Probably the most sought after talent right now is DevOps engineers or DevOps or developers who are already trained and have practice in DevOps. It's a huge lack of talent right now. And people get frustrated when you get a development team initiated on DevOps practices and you train them and you promise that things are going to be faster and better, but you keep getting political fights or just not prioritizing the refactoring work that needs to be done in order to enable the transformation. The talent gets demotivated and they move up. Essentially, they move to another place, and we need to start again the transformations. So losing that key people is something that we are seeing a lot in the market. Developers want to have greener pastures. They want to go to places where they understand how to work well, because DevOps practices essentially are the most important thing for a developer. They directly impact their quality of lives. So what we found is that most of management of leadership who is listening to tool vendors or tool providers are not realizing the depth of the organizational transformation that needs to be done. So we have seen some anti-patterns on this, and I don't know if you want to introduce this pattern thinking, Charles, a little more.
All right. Yep, sure will. So, so this is, gave you the problem here about, some of the challenges that we're having in organizations. So now we're going to give you some areas in which that you can use as kind of some guidelines and some solution patterns on how to unblock your DevOps transformation. So I'm sorry. So the patterns here, though, that we see that are immaturity, of the organization, just they're not, your process maturity and how your culture in your organization about working together is just not at a level that's conducive to to a transformation of this nature, to get this way of working established. All right, resistance to change, that's a key thing that we all see in a lot of our organizations, just from people that have been in the organization for 30, 40 years. It may just be historical culture that we're inheriting from the past that people just want to do what they, do what they know. And they're really pretty much sticking to the way that they like to do things, and anything that's going to shake that up is not going to happen. All right. And also too, it could be from a resistance to change perspective that there might be incentives or just the way that the organizational culture is being communicated to certain individuals that it's not beneficial for them to change or make a change in the way that they work, because it might not be conducive with their bonuses or how they may be seen by their colleagues in their particular silo if they work with this other group in a certain way. All right, so resistance to change is very much clear and present because of that. And then tangentially, just as I mentioned, why people may not want to change is because of bureaucratic processes, right? That there's processes in place to kind of keep the siloed way of thinking in place and not wanting to work with other groups, and the incentives in the organization maybe not to work kind of it's not communicated directly oftentimes, but in a way that, let's kind of leave it is kind of a common thing that happens with, development and test. Like, I'm a developer, you're a tester, I throw it over the wall to you, you do your thing, I do my thing. It's not on me if it doesn't test out okay. It's because you're testing the wrong thing. But then again, where's the communication breakdown, and why aren't we testing the right things? So it's things of that nature that may keep us from preventing us from having the right culture that would really, that's really conducive to having a successful DevOps transformation. All right, Emilio?
Yeah, there are some other more technical problems we are finding on the market. One is a huge technical debt. Technical debt has many definitions. One of my favorite definitions is all the things you have in production that are going to break somewhere in the future, that you didn't ship with the quality you wanted to. There are some things that you don't really know how they work, would they work, and you don't want to touch them. So we see a lot of legacy systems where the developers are no longer in the company. Nobody knows how to fix things or break things. And they are very, very afraid of making changes to that. So technical debt can also be understood as having platforms that are really difficult to modernize. One of the main things we are doing right now is helping companies to understand how they can achieve that. Technical debt in the form of legacy systems can be reduced, but there is no clear path to do that. There's no recipe to do that. So this management challenge essentially of prioritizing that is a big blocker. People want to do, they may have the culture to do that, but they have technical difficulties on achieving that. And lastly, one of the saddest things I have seen in the market is this emphasis on tool standardization. It seems from some vendors that having a tool, an integrated tool, is all you need to do DevOps, when in reality, most of the companies has a really diverse set of technologies, a real zoo of technologies. So if one technology, one DevOps stack work for cloud native things, it not necessarily will work in mainframe or AS400 or something like monolithic Java development. So this forces it as standardization. What brings up is internal fighting. If you are a developer who has a really tight schedule to release things, you are not going to go through the work that means trying to understand a new tool that someone higher in the organization is trying to push you, and you're going to defend against that and in a guerrilla war style. So you're going to find some reasons to show that you can get into the DevOps picture because you are not really comfortable with the higher decisions on doing that. One of the main things of this open DevOps movement is to let the teams standardize the tools they need, not on a corporation or enterprise basis, and forget about trying to optimize cost on licensing. Here we need to optimize the speed to value. So these are 5 patterns we have been finding in our coaching and consulting things. And this pattern thinking thing is really useful when you need to find solutions, because if you understand the root causes of these patterns of obstacles, then you can provide solutions. And that's essentially the main goal here.
All right, thanks, Emilio. So as Emilio mentioned that, these are some common patterns, and we're gonna, cover these patterns a little bit more in depth, but there's some solution patterns that can align with these areas as well. And so that's what we're gonna talk about next. So solution pattern number one, organic adoption versus organizational immaturity. And a little bit of background on this is that, trying to force a square peg into a round hole. Some organizations want to adopt a transformation or a new approach to working, but they're not ready to. Their culture is not ready to, their teams are not educated properly, their leadership is not educated properly. And that's organizational immaturity. They are not ready to adopt things at a certain level. So what we're going to talk about here are some organic ways of adoption, which is trying to put the round peg in the round hole, and what will kind of be an approach that will work for certain organizations and meet them at their place. And Emilio, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Charles. Well, the first thing is you need to know where you are at, and not every team is at the same level of technical maturity as the other one. We are working with an organization that have 200 teams, and probably just doing a general analysis of them, probably 60% of them they don't have the technical maturity. They will want to do release on demand, but doing release on demand implies that you have automated building of the software, you have automated testing, you have some way of deploying fast enough and recovering for failed deploys fast, and they don't have the technology, or they don't know how to do it. So if a higher manager wants to do DevOps and they promise to do release on the demand for the whole company, they are not going to be able to do it if they try to follow a recipe. Each team has a different path to get to DevOps maturity. So normally you should start with the DevOps assessment. That's the best way to do it. There are lots of models, of maturity models on how to do that. DASA and Scaled Agile provides some maturity models that I find them quite useful because they are really easy to implement. So the other things, there are some basic things that you need to build. You need to build an infrastructure to actually do the deployments. That's, I think, one of the easiest parts to do. But then you're going to go forward and try to make your own path. Let the teams make their own path to improvement. One of the main drawbacks of trying to use process that fits all the teams is that they are not going to fit all the teams. And when you find that the organization is trying to push you to do something you are not ready to do, you're going to spend time and the results are not going to be as good enough. So for first recommendation is to start where you are. That's simple. You need to have the transparent way of thinking, the maturity to accept that probably DevOps is a long journey. You're not going to get to DevOps maturity in 3 months or 1 year. It's going to probably take longer, but you need to adapt the way that you are, first starting where you are, and then selecting the business problem you're trying to solve by doing some improvement. For example, if you have quality issues and it's clear that you have quality issues, probably automated deployment is not going to solve the quality issues. You need to better your automation practice on testing. And that's why a maturity model is a good way to do that. In a maturity model, you should advance on all the fronts at the same time, and you shouldn't have the spikes where you do things really way better than the standard, but you have some other lagging way behind. So having a maturity assessment, which can be done really easy, this one we are presented here is one of the Agility Health's maturity assessment, in particular the Scaled Agile model on maturity. I find it really quite useful to start a conversation with business and plan a specific roadmap on how you can transform every team.
Thanks, Emilio. So solution pattern number 2, and it's kind of very explicit here, voluntary transformation versus resistance to change. And how do we get people over that hurdle of being resistant to change? So before we kick off in this, one of the themes that I say that, is kind of throughout this whole topic here of, trying to unblock your transformation is about culture, 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 culture. And that's actually the first principle, usually always in the, in any DevOps model, is about cultural, the culture, about how do we have a shared responsibility into this, into this effort to get better. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to you, Emilio, to give us a little bit more insight on solution pattern number 2.
Yeah, well, this concept in Scale Agile, we use this concept called invitation-based transformation. But invitation-based transformation implies something different. And the implied thing is a voluntary transformation. Even though you know as a leader that your organization needs to move forward in the DevOps maturity, you shouldn't force teams to go in a transformation when they are not at the moment to do that. There are different stages a team is. If you are probably doing a migration or doing some huge work which is really tight on the schedule, it's not the same, it's not the best moment to start the transformation. You should wait until the rhythm of the release lets you handle the actual transformation. This voluntary transformation should be included in whatever framework you're using for using agile management. One of the things that the voluntary transformation should take into account is to specify clearly what are the benefits the team are going to receive by doing this DevOps transformation. What are the business benefits on doing that, and what resources are you willing to put at their disposal to do that? So having an onboarding model and having a clear process that is understandable by all teams of what it takes to move to a higher level of DevOps maturity is really an essential part of this. The other thing that we find it really helps is to start from the ground up with an onboarding process. The onboarding process is really important because it gives guidelines to the whole organization on how to move forward. And also this onboarding process can be improved. When you do voluntary transformation and at the same time you define a really explicit onboarding process, you get huge benefits. One of the first benefits is if you are transforming the first teams, they will be highly motivated to do that, and they will help you fine-tune your onboarding process. So on the curve of change, it's always better to start with a team that is relevant. That's also important. You will want to transform more teams that are relevant to the business, so you can have more business support on doing the actual transformation, and share with them that you're building your onboarding process. This is just an example of the phases we have found useful to design a particular onboarding process. One of the main reasons to have a particular onboarding process is to take into account the cultural context in the transformation. Not every company takes decisions the same way, and the onboarding process should be defined by its company, especially if they have difficult or higher number of teams, no? So you need a discovery phase. In this discovery phase, you need to understand the delivery pipelines. You could get a baseline of essential metrics to understand what the business benefit of this transformation they're going to achieve. In my own practice, I have found that most of the technical teams want to do DevOps transformations, but they are not being prioritized by the product owners, product managers, or business owners. So this discovery process done with the leadership can help you provide a transformation roadmap that is actually achievable, but also supported by business. And that means resources, that means training, that means preparation. The other thing is we shouldn't expect that teams go into DevOps in their day-to-day work without providing them the allocation of capacity to train themselves or to be trained by someone else. And also try to propose these specific enablers of activities they need to do. So the preparation phase is essentially having that map, having that practice training so they can begin to implementing, and then you need to initiate that. We have found that actually launching and providing a specific phase when they know they're starting and celebrate that first real practical results on that is highly motivating for the developers and the whole teams doing this. And after we initiated that, and we define initiation as the first time you are doing things, the first time you are doing continuous integration, the first time you are doing automated testing, the first time is not the final stage. After you do this initiation of practices, it's really convenient to stabilize them. You need to make them flow. You need to make them become part of the usual day-to-day work, and that should be the focus of the next phase, achieving flow on these new practices. And after you achieve flows, then you can begin to expect improvements. You cannot do improvements if you haven't stabilized practices deep enough in order to begin thinking in improvement. Finally, there are some ways to guide what are the actual work should be done. There's this whole movement of shifting left. What does shifting left means? Well, shifting left means that the earlier in the development process that we automate things or get a focus on quality, the cheaper it will be to implement these practices. It's always cheaper to do good requirements than to do hot fixing at the last date of the release, because we find out that we were not really understanding the business requirement, and when we show that system demo to them, they are not fully satisfied with what it's in, or we are not solving the problem. So we normally start the DevOps transformations by standardizing management, backlog management, getting right into the features story and the communication tools that you need to have business owners, product managers in sync with what needs to be achieved. That really is a no-brainer. You should do that. You should begin with backlog management and the actual agile management part of the stack. And after that, as soon as you begin to automate builds, you need to get into testing. Testing is the most sought after improvement in the first stages of work. And I know we all want to push a button and release into production and then push another button and roll back, but that's really very late on the actual transformation process, and the business benefit of that really doesn't compare to trying to automate management or automate testing early on. So you need to focus on that. Focus on shifting left on your transformation. Why I say that? Because most of the tool vendors, they try to sell you the end goal, which probably will be months ahead. So try to keep that in mind when you design your transformation.
All right, thanks, Emilio, for that. So to introduce solution pattern number 3, I just want to get a little background on this particular topic. One of the things that with any DevOps transformation, kind of one of the primary things that you do right up front is to understand what the value streams are within an organization and how value flows within an organization. So, and that's critical, right? Because if we understand how value flows within an organization, we can optimize around value flow. But oftentimes there's bureaucracy around that. There's silos. There's walls of bureaucracy between one group and another. So how do we work around those walls, Emilio? And I think that's what you're going to give us some solution patterns around.
Well, we come from a scaled agile background, and in scaled agile, lean is one of the main things we try to achieve, the lean flow. So what this organized around value means? Well, essentially, it means that we shouldn't get the hierarchical structure, which is the basis for bureaucratic process, We are not against bureaucratic process in DevOps or in Lean Agile. We understand they have the value. When you get into bureaucratic process, you essentially are saying, I want to control things. I want to control things. I want to make sure that things are being done in a way that the enterprise seems fit. And you get into something called suboptimal local optimization. What essentially this means is that every part of the organization is trying to optimize his bureaucratic process to get the metrics and the things they need. For example, if you're in a testing organization, the suboptimal local optimization will mean to find bugs and try to prevent those bugs to go into production. But if you go too deep on trying to find bugs, I have found teams who report a bug where the color of the logo of the web page they are testing is not essentially the same that the corporation marketing procedure states to do so. And that's really relevant for the user value or business value. So when you get into suboptimal optimization, you get bureaucracy, but the bad kind of bureaucracy, the kind that you seize for their silo. And you need to organize around value because you want faster delivery and higher work, higher quality. How do you do that? Well, you do that by introducing the concept of value stream. Even in this year, the concept of value stream is really strange to most organizations, and is one of the biggest things right now in the DevOps space, to understand that value stream optimization is the way to go. What is a value stream? Well, a value stream in essential is the set of steps that a customer needs to go through in order to receive value from whatever the organization is doing. In this example, this is a loan. Some people want to get a loan from a finance institution, and there are some people who are probably marketing assigned to attract customers. They probably do LinkedIn campaigns or some kind of direct email campaigns. They need infrastructures to go to those channels. Then you go to a web portal where you get the rates and complete the loan application. Some people assess your capacity to get the loan and give you terms, and then your loan gets awarded, and then it gets operated, and the corporation finally gets the loan repayment with interest in the process of time. And this value stream, this set of steps, which is business oriented, not technically oriented, is an operational value stream. This operational value stream is supported by a set of systems or solutions that are the ones that the software development teams are developing. These software development, these different channels or different system solutions, they normally have teams to support them, but these teams are silos in themselves. If you are in the channel doing the portal development, you probably doesn't know anything of the loan origination system or the credit organization or scoring system, but the actual service you provide to the end customer needs that if you change some feature on the marketing side, probably the loan organizations in the credit scoring systems, they are going to need changes. So the idea of organizing around value in DevOps is to understand that all these systems should be a part of a team of teams. In Scaled Agile, we mentioned this as an agile release train, which is essentially a team of teams. And you then prioritize and optimize the whole development value stream, independently of which teams are working in this. So this is a really, really useful procedure. And normally when you begin a DevOps transformation, you should do this transformation around value streams. So a value stream transformation is I think, not difficult to do. It's really quite easy. You can find videos and texts everywhere to do that. If you want to have some quick guidance, go to the scaledagile.com.org website, and you can find that this same information how to do that. So you should begin by identifying an operational value stream that you need to improve. Then identify the solution or systems that you need to optimize in order to get this business value. Identify the people who develop this, and identify the value streams to build the system. The development value streams is the actual delivery pipeline we manage in DevOps. So when you get into this stage, you shouldn't go around trying to get the teams all in the same pace. every development value streams has constraints. Not all the teams will have the same constraints. And one thing we have found really useful to drive and align the transformation to business objectives is to put the basis of this constraint transformation, probably testing, on a clear business objective related to the operational value stream. If you do that, you will get help from business owners. If you go around and try to implement practices without understanding the impact on the operational value stream, business owners are not going to help you because they don't understand why you need to invest that kind of money or that kind of time on providing some technical value, which you haven't been able to clearly map to business outcomes.
All right. Thanks, Emilio, for that. So solution pattern number 4 is prioritizing enablers versus technical debt. Let's talk about technical debt first, kind of being the culprit here. We identified it as one of the patterns of blockage. That technical debt can be thought of oftentimes too as a tool. It is something, it's like a credit card, right? A credit card can be beneficial at times to get a quick win or a quick purchase and maybe get a quick release into the production environment and have customers use our solution, but you're paying for it. You've done something potentially to, that there's a quality cleanup, or there's something that we have done that we normally wouldn't do if we had the cash to pay for it up front. But we want to do it maybe because of speed and because of convenience. But the problem is when we get too much technical debt, when the credit card bill gets too high, and then we got all these credit card bills, and then we're drowning in debt, and it's hard for us to get value in anything. So a lot of organizations are stuck in that rut because they may have legacy systems or things that have been around for a long time. It's just costing them a lot of aches and pains to maintain. And they're struggling with that. So there's just so much problems at hand versus having a planned approach and a structured approach to it, which is prioritizing your technical enablers and being able to have a part of our plans, a way of addressing the improvement areas within our DevOps transformation. So Emilio, I'll let you take it away from here.
Thank you. One of the things that I think that agile transformation has brought up in the last 15 years, which is essentially what we have been trying to do in the last 15 years, is to let business drive development. Before agile, what you got was very strong technical organizations that practically set the pace on how to do the actual development. If business wanted something, they will have to push the technical organization to try to achieve faster results. But the technical organization always retain the plans, and it was so separate, the technical prioritization from the business prioritization, that in most big organizations, the technical side won. Not clearly, but providing, slack, a lot of slack on their solutions. They would make it forcible to do some things because they have the technical knowledge that these things were going to be better, but it was obscure. It was not transparent how to do that. Most of the reasons the organizations are going into agile or went through the agile transformation was to provide clarity to the business owners and product managers on where the time was going to spend. But then the pendulum swung to the other side. We now find agile teams who they have a good, a product owner, a defined product owner, and the organizations think that going agile is going fast. They don't understand agility as the capacity to change course, but just as a speed. So I have found in the market that when the organizations go agile, they want to deliver features, business functionality as soon as possible, and that causes an imbalance between having a good architecture, a good platform which is manageable, who can provide the non-functional requirements needed to actually perform, and the business features. And we are seeing a lot of applications and systems that are not really there in quality terms. And one of the solutions is to empower back the technical organization. These roles of architects who should be at the same level as the product ownership or product managership or product management, they should agree and have a consensus on how to prioritize enablers. What are enablers? Well, enablers are things that you need to do in order to provide functionality of value. And these things that you need to do probably will be implement a continuous delivery, a continuous integration software. You probably need to do some automated testing on code quality. But those things, if product management doesn't understand the business value of doing that, they're not going to be prioritized. And if product management is the sole owner of the capacity of the teams, and you don't have architecture or engineering on the same table on a collaborative basis, you are not going to get the time or the capacity to do the actual transformation. So our advice here is make sure in whatever model you're using in SAFe, this is really explicit. You got the system architect, which is on the same level of capacity allocation as a product manager. Even though the product manager is the leader, he knows he needs to listen to architecture and engineering in order to provide continuous improvement in their delivery process. So it's really useful to make that explicit as soon as possible. Not just product management is going to prioritize functionality. You need to prioritize improvement in the form of enablers. The whole DevOps transformation can be seen as an improvement. What's the practice here to get good at that? Well, you need to have some kind of policies to do capacity allocation. In every sprint, in every period of development program increment, you should have previously stated capacity allocation for new features, for technical dev, and for technological enablers like doing DevOps. And you should respect that. You should get that clear as soon as possible, because if you do not assign a specific capacity to do that improvement, it's not going to be magically brought up. It's simply not going to be done. And you are going to be getting into more depth as long as you don't do this capacity allocation for improvement. The other thing that we have found on the technical depth side of things is that most of technological modernization nowadays is based on doing migration. We just a couple of weeks earlier have a conversation with a new fintech customer which was trying to release some migration of their baseline main value stream software, which was a technological migration, big bang technological migration. And after expending almost $3 million on that technological migration, they found out that they wasn't really with the quality or the vision to provide them another platform to do better things. So they just shut down that initiative. And we have seen a lot of things in that regard on doing technological modernization. It seems that the only thing that we can achieve is doing big bang transformation, and that's not the way to do that. There is this thing called a strangler pattern, in which you have monoliths, whatever is mainframe, AS400, Java. It's really weird to say that Java is legacy, but I'm in that age now that Java is the new mainframe or the new COBOL. But you get monoliths, and you know, if you want to go cloud native or you want to be cloud ready, you need to deploy things on smaller machines with containers. And my advice is to not get into big bang transformations, but use the strangle pattern. And you need to assess which part of the services they are providing, which part of the functionality has the more vitality being defined as need for change. What are the paths of this monolith that normally get more change requests, and strangle that, get that out of the monolith and make the monolith consume this new architecture and new service, and just don't kill the monolith, make it irrelevant with the pass of time. This is an easier way to manage a big bang a transformation, and it has a lot of benefits. It's safer, it's faster, and it's cheaper. So make business know that if you are right now kind of trapped in an old technology, legacy technology, there is a way out, and it's doing slice by slice. That's the strangle pattern in essence.
All right, thanks for that, Emilio. And our last pattern here, improvement standardization versus tool standardization. So in our kickoff here, we talked about how, committing to a certain tool set too early and pretty much locking yourself into, things that may not work out for you in the future. It could get very expensive to, scale back and start over again, very political even. Oh, we've selected all these tools. These are the tools that we want to go with. That could prevent innovation and from you moving forward in your transformation. And the alternative here is improvement standardization. And there's a saying from Edward Deming that always resonates with me. Edward Deming being the kind of the guru of lean. He says that there's kind of two ways of him saying that. He says that you can't have innovation without standardization. And what he means by that, though, is another kind of saying that he always says, that you can't have quality. You have to specify quality in order to have quality. What is your baseline? What are you standardizing on in terms of your quality level so that you can show continuous improvement? And we need to standardize on that so we show that we're moving in the right direction. All right, Emilio, I'll kick it off to you.
Thank you. That's really important. There's really not that much value on standardizing on tools. Every team has different tool set, and the cost of change of getting all the teams on the same page and using the same tools, normally it doesn't get that really much business value. Our take here is that as leaders of these transformations, we should focus on what really matters. And what really matters, and that's the essence of DevOps, is this continuous cycle of improvement. If you improve 2% every month, really, really fast, by the law of compound interest, you are going to have huge improvements in a few months. And that's what you were to go. So starting by the tools is not the way to go. Starting by defining a really small set of measures, of metrics that you need to keep track of, and let the teams free on how to achieve those improvements has a lot of higher business value than just doing standardization on tools. What kind of metrics? Well, one of the metrics, these are the famous DORA metrics. DORA is an organization which does research on DevOps, and these DORA metrics are kind of this golden standard on improvement in DevOps. The first one is deployment frequency. How many times a year, a quarter, a month, a week, a day does your team releases things to production? This kind of frequency is a measure of how heavy a release process is or not. It also related with the lead time to changes. Lead time to changes, what measures is the time when the organization sees that needs a change, probably a bug fix or a new feature. It's a change. Both of them are changes. When they first identify the need to do that, to the time when they're actually solved that by putting something in production. In a modern organization with more or less agility, that shouldn't go for features more than a quarter probably. And there are some huge organizations like Amazon, Google, or the big ones that probably have that measured in days. When they detect something that needs to be changed to the day they have it changed, they have that lead time in the order of days or hours. No? The other thing is how many of these changes actually fail when we put them in production? That's a general overview of quality of what we are doing. And it doesn't just test quality on the software development side of things, also on the operations, on the actual deployments, on the technical process to put code in production. So that failure rate is a measure of quality on the whole DevOps process. And then the other, the recoverability. Now, one of the things that it's really useful is to design for recoverability. What that means, if we put something in production, we should design this to get a rollback soon enough, really fast enough, as fast as we are putting that online. So this time to restore service is also a good metric to keep track of, and you should employ some tools that get track of that. This image is from Atlassian. We are partners of Atlassian, and we use Atlassian because we are convinced that the vision of Open DevOps of Atlassian is the one to go forward. And what's this vision on tooling? Well, we understand that you got Agile, you got DevOps, you got IT operations, which are processes related to one another. And this stage, most of the tool vendors provide a single source solution, completely integrated, but that is not necessarily applicable to real life teams. Real life teams use different things. They don't use they probably use Git for doing transformations, but they use a GitLab or I don't know, whatever provider of Git they got. They may use Jenkins to provide continuous integration, and they are not part of the stack of Atlassian, for example. And one of the things you should look in a tool provider is the capacity to integrate a diverse set of tools or things. But this tool should provide you with the metrics and the measures to actually manage the improvement. And that's one of the things that we need to focus on. The teams are standardizing practices. They are not standardizing tools. If you follow that pattern, things are going to be well, because the teams are going to be motivated to invest in practices, not on learning new tools. Nobody has time to learn new tools when you are in tight schedule. So that's one of the recommendations. Use a tool stack that is open enough, so you can use whatever the teams are already using to do the development work, and standardize on the measures we see. No? And I think that's more or less covers what we wanted to share with you. I don't know if you want to do some closing remarks, Charles.
Yeah, well, thanks, Emilio, for that excellent coverage of that open DevOps model. And yeah, so we presented those five problem patterns and the 5 solution patterns. And as we mentioned, and Emilio, you can kind of go to the next slide and we can
Sure.
close out that. Yeah, as Emilio mentioned, our partnership here does include that. We have a partnership with Atlassian, but the open DevOps model is an open model that is flexible enough to account for a variety of tool stacks, and to our pattern that we just communicated, that standardizing on a certain tool set is an anti-pattern. So keep it open, keep the open DevOps model in mind, and that way you have the flexibility to adapt to your environment and the market going forward with your DevOps approach. And Emilio, I'll let you kind of end it though too with some of the services that might be available for anyone listening on the DevSecOps service options that we might be able to help them with.
Sure. Just to be consistent, I think that the first things you should do to begin or to unblock your DevOps transformations is you assess where you are. And I know if you're working in a big corporation, it's going to be very hard to get funding on things. So what we decided to do is to have this model of being a free assessment, which includes the obstacle identification, the particular pattern that is getting into your organization, and then giving you back after this free assessment, a transformation strategy. We as a team, I4 and Sistemas Humanos, can help you to do that transformation guidance. We can put coaches and consultants with your team, with your own roadmap, and guide you through transformation. And if you don't have time or you don't want to invest in actually learning a lot of new tools, we even have the option of building a platform team that can be managed and consumed as a managed service for you. So if you are interested in that, you're going to have the presentation. Here are some or emails for further questions and everything. And for myself, I wanted to thank you for the patience. We know we had some inconveniences at the start, but I'm glad you were here, and we will love to hear your questions.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, please send us a note. We're going to end the webinar here right at the hour, a little bit over. But again, thank you so much for joining. This video will be posted, and yeah, please reach out if you have any questions or like us to follow up with you on anything that we covered in our webinar. Thank you, guys. You guys have a great day. Thank you so much. Thanks, Emilio.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.